let's dive right in. Start at the tippy top at number 1 with Nikita Kucherov. He is currently going number 4 overall ADP, which is obviously the number 1 right winger off the board. Unsurprisingly, all three of us have Nikita Kucherov ranked as our number 1 right winger. Kucherov, I think, I said this on our left wing episode the other day, that I felt like Leon Draisaitl still has a case to be picked first overall, but I think Kucherov has an even stronger case. And for starters, he's led the NHL in points and assists in each of the last 2 seasons. That's a good place to start. But he's also averaged 41 goals during that time. He's averaged 41 goals, 92 assists, and 133 points in the last 2 seasons. Also averaging 286 shots and nearly 50 power play points. He's just been unbelievable. Those are absolutely preposterous numbers. And he plays a position which Beebs thinks is much deeper this year, but it is one that is typically weaker than center at the very least. So I think it makes him a logical selection if you do take him, or if you do have number 1 overall. I don't think it's out of the question that he can go there. And then you can wait several rounds for the centers, and you can still get like a Mark Scheifele or Sebastian Aho in the 5th, 6th round right now, and they can be your number 1 center, and you can easily load up on wings, goalies, D, whatever you want, and wait on the centers a little bit if you decide to bypass a McDavid or a McKinnon, because I mean, everybody's strategy is different, and I'm assuming you guys are similar to me, where I feel like if you take McDavid or you take McKinnon, at least in years past, I feel somewhat boxed in the way I'm like, okay, I really can't take another center. And then if there's like a great center value that drops, you almost feel like if you take him, it's going to come at the expense of your other positions, and you kind of box yourself in a little bit. At least that's how I've felt in the past. So to me, the conversation around Kucherov is more strategy based than who he is as a player. We know what we're getting with Kucherov. It's absolutely elite, rarely misses time. So D, what are your thoughts here on Kucherov? Is he somebody that you'd be willing to take first overall? And maybe just talk about some of that draft strategy, and if you do take a right winger, that it opens things up a little bit.
Yeah, I think again, we say this a lot, but it depends on the format, right? Like I've been in weekly leagues where you don't even have a utility spot to play with, and if you're rolling 2 centers and you have to lock them in for the week, like you said, taking a McKinnon or McDavid really kind of puts you in a box for the rest of the draft. And in terms of like, you're really only going to take one other center in those early rounds, and then you might be in a spot where you feel like you're reaching at the wing position. So I think especially in those kind of leagues, right, if you don't have the utility to play with, or you're in a weekly format where you're locking in your lineup for the week, like taking a Kucherov makes a ton of sense, especially because, like barring a major knee injury, there's not really any way that you're going to be disappointed with the selection. So I think there's absolutely a case for it. I think in the more common formats, I would still take the upside of a guy of McKinnon and McDavid that can just fill the net a little bit more than Kucherov. Like, he's only topped 40 goals 3 times in his career. I mean, we're saying only, but at the top of the draft, those are kind of the bars that you have to set. And someone that, you don't really ever expect to kind of flirt with 50 goals. I wouldn't be shocked if he did it. I think he's got that kind of shot and still fires the puck on net at a pretty elite rate, but I don't think you can bank on it at the same level that you can a McKinnon, a McDavid, or even a Draisaitl. So yeah, it's all about knowing your format. But in those weekly leagues, or in those leagues where you don't have as much roster flexibility, I think there's definitely a case, and I would not judge anyone for going with Kucherov.
Can I hop back in here for a second just to give you guys kind of an idea? So our 8th ranked center is Mark Scheifele. His ADP is 53.5. Our 8th ranked left winger is Philip Forsberg. His ADP is 25. Matt Boldy is 9th. His ADP is 27th. In the right wingers, we're not going to tell you who it is, but their ADP is 38. Their 7th, 8th, and 9th ranked right wingers are 38, 38, and 40. So these wingers are coming off the board. The high-end wingers are coming off the board a lot earlier, and you are able to still get what we perceive as our number 8, 9 center in the 5th, 6th round. So if you do elect to go with a winger earlier, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to bypass on McDavid or McKinnon, you could get Kucherov at 3, and I think you would probably be happy about that because you aren't as boxed in. So I just wanted to give you an idea of a little bit how deep the center position is, but how many wingers are going early because they're not quite as deep. They are a little bit top heavy. But Beebs, what are your thoughts here on Kucherov just overall, and what are your thoughts about him maybe being a first overall pick? Are you willing to go there?
I'm not willing to go there, but I don't think that's necessarily a bash on Kucherov. I mean, yes, certain leagues maybe I am, but I think this is more a compliment to how fine you are if you do get him in 3 or 4. I personally would rather have that pick in a snake draft and then have a little bit of a closer shot to another superstar with my second overall or with my second round pick. So I think you're fine. You mentioned it. He doesn't miss much games. One thing people hate him for is that he's an empty net merchant, but we don't care. We love that for fantasy. That's absolutely perfect. Become a bigger merchant, pal. But overall, you guys nailed it. I'm just not willing to give him that first overall due to the inability to hit 50 goals that we've seen from the other guys. But I say inability. He may have that ability. We might see it this year. Who knows? Kucherov's an absolute stud. But yeah, I would be completely content with him at 3 or 4. And if you're in a crazy league where he somehow makes it to 5, just start clearing off your trophy room early because it's going to be a nice year.
We outlined it a little bit. I mentioned it briefly during our centers preview. If you do land the 3rd or 4th pick, the way ADP is currently falling, you could start with Kucherov in the 1st round and Braden Point, his line mate. They spend so much time together in the 2nd round and have a nice stack to start things off. We talked about on our left wing preview how just kind of consistent the Lightning are as a whole, and we expect big things from them. Again, our number 2 right winger is David Pastrnak. I have him at 2. Beebs has him at 2. Dylan has him at 2. He is ADP 7 overall, number 2 right winger off the board. So again, right in line, pretty chalky position here for us. Pastrnak, though, like, he feels like one of the players that I had the most difficult time ranking this season. Obviously, he's coming off 3 straight 100-point seasons. He leads the NHL in goals. He's 5th in points and 1st in shots on goal during that time. But where I get a little conflicted here is with Pastrnak, he finished last year, like you guys recall, like the finish that Pastrnak had was ridiculous. Morgan Geekie went nuclear. He had 64 points, 26 goals, 38 assists in his final 38 games. Like, he was insane, which is a 56-goal, 138-point pace. Like, it was just unbelievable. That's obviously elite, but last year he finished with a grossly unsustainable 91.7 IPP. If you're unfamiliar with IPP, that means he had a point on 91.7% of the goals that were scored while he was on the ice. Basically what he's going to have to do this year if the Bruins are going to have any success at all, because some regression in that category, it's inevitable. Nobody maintains that. But my main concern is the surrounding cast. This could be an extremely low-scoring Bruins team this year. And Pastrnak is going to have a 91% IPP if he's going to, like, if they're going to be competitive at all. So I still think that he is a first-round caliber fantasy player, obviously. But if they don't score enough, does he have the ceiling still to be a top 5 fantasy player, or is he going to end up closer to 10th? I think I have a really difficult time ranking Pastrnak. I have a really difficult time pulling the trigger on him as elite as he is. Maybe you guys feel differently. Like, Beebs, how do you feel about Pastrnak? Like, are you just firmly comfortable? Like, doesn't matter how bad this team is, he's still getting to 100 points this year?
I'm not as comfortable. I mean, the 29th ranked power play last season, absolutely scares me. He only had 23 power play points because of that. That's the lowest he's put up since 2021 or 2020, 2021, which was the lockout, or not the lockout, the COVID season there. So basically it's the lowest he's put up since 2015, which is the season where he played only 51 games and didn't touch the power play. And that just goes to show how bad the talent was around him. And the worst part is, you mentioned it, it's not like they did anything to help it. They didn't bring in even a Shane Gostisbehere, or just someone that you could throw. Bring in a Tony D. He wasn't on the board, but bring in someone like that can at least improve your power play. We saw Mason Lohrei step in there, but obviously there's
McAvoy will be healthy this year, but still,
he will. But even McAvoy is
power play contributor.
Exactly. I mean, I would not be sad if Pastrnak did fall to me at any point. I mean, we've seen how steady he can be here. His lowest goal totals, as you've mentioned, since 2021 or 2021-22 is 40 in a season. So you know what you're getting. I think for where you're getting him, it's fine. If someone's trying to make the decision to choose between him or Kucherov, which was those leagues I was kind of mentioning before where you might get Kucherov at 5, I think that's where you got to pump the brakes quite a bit. You know what you have here. I think he's in a little bit of a tier less than Nikita Kucherov. But with that said, he's going to get the 20 minutes of ice time. And as long as he is on the ice, I don't care who the other 4 players are. You mentioned, I mean, I do, but he's still going to produce. He could definitely help those numbers a little bit, but with what he has, his floor is just, it's pretty fantastic. And if he does catch those hot stretches like he did last year, which we've seen more often than the cold stretches, he's absolutely worth the pick. But either way, you're going to have to give up your first round pick here. So it's just a matter of, are you willing to do that for a guy who likely sits on the 30th best power play in the NHL next year? A bottom 10 power play, being realistic, which is not good for fantasy.
I feel like we're being a little negative about David Pastrnak. I don't want people to think that we don't like him, but do you maybe bring it back a little bit? How are you feeling?
I'll pump it up a little bit. I'd take him before Kaprizov, straight up overall.
Yeah,
and I think I'd probably take him above Matthews just because of the position eligibility and being able to add that winger to the board early. And then there's Makar, that it's just a decision of whether or not you want to have the best defenseman by a mile on your roster, or you want a guy that's going to threaten 100 points and easily deliver between 40 to 45 goals, right? So I think there was a conversation for him to be the 5th overall pick, and I'd have no problems with it. I think the IPP drops a little bit, but he is just such the focal point of that offense that I would expect him to be at above 80% again this year. And that's where Kaprizov operated last year. And you have a little bit more injury concerns with Kaprizov. You have whatever's going on with the front office, and probably, not that much better of a supporting cast. And to me, I'm just how can a power play featuring David Pastrnak finish that poorly again, right? So I just think I'd be shocked if it's anywhere near as bad as it was. I would hope it to be kind of more middle of the pack. And at that point, I think he definitely threatens 100 points again and just continues to deliver on the goals with, 60 goal upside, as we saw a couple of years ago. So, I'm probably a little bit higher than you guys in the sense that I would take him above Cap and Matthews. And I'd probably have a hard think about taking him over Makar. Makar's just such a tough one to kind of bet on, in the sense that, yes, he's going to be head and shoulders above the rest of the D-man, but is he going to shoot 12% from the back end again and get you to 30 goals, which is where, a lot of his value came from last year. Obviously, he's going to be fantastic either way, but I think it's something to think about. So for me, if I was on the 5th overall, that's one of the harder picks to make it right now in fantasy hockey, is deciding between that next tier. And I think he's firmly in that conversation. So yeah, still love Pasta coming into this year, even with the lack of supporting cast. I just think he's that good.
Yeah,
I will say to also support him. The guy is so elite in shot totals that just a couple years ago, he had the 12th best season all time with 407 shots on net. So that's something, as Dee mentioned, when you're choosing between Kaprizov and guys like that, do they even have that ceiling? You have to debate. And Pastrnak clearly does, but Brock, sorry, I cut you off there. I just had to pump up David a little bit.
No, I was going to say, to be clear, I have him at 5, D has him at 5, Nick has him at 5, Beebs and Matt have him at 6. He comes in DFO top 300 as the number 5, and I have him at 5. I had a harder time deciding how high to rank him, but I agree. I'm still taking him over Kaprizov. I'm still taking him over Matthews, and then that Makar debate is really where it lands. And we talk about it a lot. About it's on bad teams, good players still have to score. Somebody's got to score. This, in theory, could also help David Pastrnak. He could be a guy that has 400 shots this year, because what else is going to happen? And who knows? Maybe Morgan Geeky's second half last year was the real deal, and they aren't quite as bad as we think. I think we're maybe a little low on them, but it's going to be an interesting one. I had a really difficult time ranking David Pastrnak. Let's move on to number 3, where we've got Mikko Rantanen. All 3 of us have him at 3. He is currently ADP number 10 overall, which is the 3rd right winger off the board. So the chalk continues. I think that, similarly to David Pastrnak, I had a very difficult time with Mikko Rantanen. It's hard to know exactly what to expect here in a full season with something that we've never really seen before. I'm really kind of throwing out last year's stat line for Mikko Rantanen. It was a very strange year. Nobody ever really gets traded twice. He still finished with 88 points, 32 goals, 56 assists in 82 games. However, after leaving Colorado, he only scored 17 goals. He was on a 17-goal, 42-assist pace. That's concerning on its own, but I think he kind of squashed those concerns in the playoffs, where he was absolutely kind of back to his same self, just looked like an absolute horse, especially early. He had 22 points in 18 playoff games. So I still have my doubts that Rantanen can get back to 100 points in Dallas, just because he kind of required 22 minutes a night in Colorado to get there. 22 minutes a night playing with Makar and McKinnon and on a really good power play. He's not going to get those kind of minutes in Dallas. He might hover around 19, 20, like he was in the playoffs last year, but that's a team that likes to balance their minutes out a little bit more. So I still think he's basically got a 90-point floor, and it's that's probably where he operates. There is that elite ceiling still. I just don't know if he gets there at 19, 20 minutes a night. So I think, late first round ADP is fine. He's probably going right where he should, but he does feel like kind of a weird pick as well. I'm not 100% sold on him being but to me, like the only other players you can really strongly consider outside of banger leagues, it's like, okay, what do you do? Like Mikko Rantanen or Kyle Connor, Mikko Rantanen or William Nylander. Like I still think it's Mikko there. Nylander would be the one guy that I think I would have some pause. Kyle Connor would be close, but Mikko still feels like he's probably got the higher ceiling overall. So, D, what are your thoughts here on Mikko? Like, obviously, it was a wishy-washy season with a great playoff run, and he's on a team that's very good.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. It's probably the hardest guy to project on this entire list, and it feels kind of a cop-out just leaving him at the chalk. And as a Leafs fan, I did have him ranked above Nylander, but with those concerns, I think it'd be enough to make me pull the trigger on Willie ahead of him, especially with Marner gone. I think that bodes well, obviously, for that debate in terms of Nylander over Rantanen. But yeah, it's concerning in the sense that, like, how much of him turning on in the postseason was just due to the fact that they kind of just leaned that much more heavily on their best players, right? Like, this is one of the deepest teams in the NHL. They're going to play their third line a lot more than the average third line. And I agree, like, he's not going to get close to the 22 minutes he had. And I don't think he gets close to the 20 and a half minutes he played in the postseason, right? I think it's closer to the 19 minutes he played during those final 20 regular season games with the Stars, when he had 18 points in 20 games and only managed 37 shots on goal. So yeah, it's a tricky one, man. Like, the talent is obviously there, but there's no denying the fact that playing alongside McKinnon and Makar like boosted his raw production totals, right? And I don't think we can expect him to touch 100 points in Dallas, and I don't think that's what you should be expecting. I would guess he probably finishes somewhere around, closer to 90, 85 points. And yeah, is that enough to make you pull the trigger over a guy like Nylander, who maybe has a little bit more raw goal scoring potential with the surrounding cast around him? So yeah, I think it's probably a guy that come draft day I'm just staying away from, because I don't feel totally confident in his projections as much as we do some of these other guys.
Yeah, 3-minute difference, as Brock mentioned, between 22 and 19 minutes in Dallas. 3 minutes is a lot of ice time when you think about that's realistically six more shifts. It's a ton of different fantasy categories. I'm with you guys. I'm a little worried taking him at the turn, and I realistically did debate Nylander as well, but I decided to hold back because I figured people would call me out because I'm a Colorado fan. But no, with none of that behind me, it's terrifying. We don't know what he's going to give us, but also it's a little exciting. He finally has a chance to click it in with the power play. He only had 3 power play goals in his 33 games after leaving Colorado. So now which totally makes sense. I mean, you stepped into units that were flowing halfway through them and basically became a pivotal piece. So if it can keep flowing like we kind of saw in the playoffs, and they can work on that in the offseason and just make it more, more adaptable to Rantanen's game, that could help bring those levels a little higher. But yeah, I personally don't think he reaches 100 points here. With that said, I also think he's a tier behind David Pastrnak completely, and that him and kind of the next few names here are a little bit more of a tier themselves, which is unfortunate, because if you are still in the first round making a choice, that does mean you got a player tiers below someone else who got a higher one. So
yeah, this is definitely a position that I found much more difficult. Like, the tiers are a little bit murkier and all of that. It's going to be interesting to see what Pastrnak does with a shitty surrounding cast, and what Mikko Rantanen is capable of. Obviously, William Nylander comes in at number 4 for us. We were considering taking him over Mikko. We all have him at 4. His ADP is 13.5, which is the 4th right winger off the board. So the chalk remains, but there is debate here, without question. Like you alluded to, D, to me, Nylander really doesn't seem to get the credit that he deserves, which, playing in kind of the mecca of hockey in Toronto, it's surprising that he's not more of a superstar. Obviously, maybe outshined a little bit by Austin Matthews, but it feels like very quietly scored 3 straight 40-plus goal seasons and still gets overlooked among the league's elite. He's in great company, though. He's tied with McKinnon for the 7th most goals during that time. He's 11th in points. He's 5th in shots on goal during those 3 seasons. So, to me, like, I absolutely will love clicking on William Nylander at that 1-2 turn. The problem is, like, if you land 12th overall, it's like, okay, yeah, this feels good. I'm happy to get Willie, but it's like, that other pick is going to be a little wishy-washy. Like it gets kind of weird there. Like, yes, you're just happy with Rantanen. I think that's fine. Depends on your format. Is it Brady Tkachuk? Is Quinn Hughes, that is a tough spot to be. Willie feels like the safe pick there, and then I don't know where you go from there. I think
is Helly on the board?
I feel like Hellebuck has to fall to you to feel comfortable. It's kind of a tough spot. So I think we're making a very good case to get a top 5 pick this year, but obviously not everybody can do so. D, we'll go back to you here. You're a resident Maple Leafs fan. You watch Nylander night in and night out. Do you feel like he gets overlooked, or am I just misreading that?
No, I think a little bit. And I think part of that is the fact that he's never gotten a ton of run alongside Matthews on the top line because him and Marner were so glued to the hip, right? And look, I expect them to open up the year with Tavares and Nylander together. I think Nyes is with Matthews again, and then we'll see who works up there. I mean, we got the projection on the site right now with Matthias Michelli. I think that makes a lot of sense, but do they really trust him that much to give him that much run? I don't know. We'll see. But I guarantee you there will be stretches this season when Nylander and Matthews are together on the top line, or there'll be stretches in games when they need a goal. Like every time they're down 1 or they're down 2 in the third period, it's going to be Matthews and Nylander being run out there together, right? And you might ask, what does that mean? Matthews was better with Marner last season, not by a large margin. But yeah, there was a reason why they played together as much as they did, right? They earned a little bit more scoring chances. The expected goals was just a little bit higher, but Willie, obviously, in the short stints that he got with Matthews, they played 140 minutes together. He saw an increase across the board in expected goals and scoring chances and high danger chances. And with that comes more ice time as well, right? So I don't expect it to be a constant. I could be wrong that, maybe we're a month in and just every night they're rolling out Matthews and Nylander. I think it balances the lineup a lot more just with Tavares and his age and his speed at this point in his career to have Nylander on that second line more often than not. But when it happens, it's going to be better off for him. I think his floor is incredibly safe. And if he does get a lot of run with Matthews on that top line, we could see him break the 100-point plateau for the first time. And yeah, 40 goals feels really, really safe right now. I'd expect the shot total to climb up closer to around the 300 mark where he was the last couple of seasons before last year. So there's a lot to love with Nylander. And I just think he's a really safe pick with some untapped upside here if he finally gets, kind of unleashed a little bit as to kind of where he's been at the last few years.
Beebs, any thoughts on Willie?
No, I love him. It's just, I agree. If I'm sitting at the turn, I'm on 12. I'm going Willie first. I'm struggling with my next pick. You nailed it. He kind of hits all the categories. I went to go peek into just to see if maybe, he slept on in every other category. Maybe Willie's given us some hits too, but unfortunately, Willie is not in the last 3 years. He's only had about 80, but that's okay. He's helping in other categories. So
you get what you get from Willie.
I'm not complaining at that point. Yeah, it's and you know what? If he started hitting, it would probably take away from him, getting 862 shots in the last 3 seasons. So we'll let Willie do what Willie does.
He's been elite in those other categories. Absolutely. He doesn't need to go out there and bang the bod. Let's stick with the Maple Leafs here. Number 5 is Mitch Marner, formerly of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mitch Marner comes in at number 5 for me, number 5 for Beebs, number 6 for D. Obviously soured on Mitch Marner after he left the Maple Leafs. He comes in as the ADP 20.5, which is the 6th right winger off the board. So we left the chalk here for a little bit. We've got him 1 spot ahead of ADP among right wingers. Obviously, this is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Marner has been just an extremely consistent fantasy force over, get this, the last 7 years. He just night in and night out. He's averaged over 100 points per 82 games during that time. His goal scoring upside has obviously been a little bit capped, but that feels baked into his ADP, right? 100-point players don't just drop into the second round unless they don't score a lot. So it'll be really interesting to see how he adjusts to life outside of Toronto. Obviously, the first time this has ever happened for him, but regular season scoring has never been an issue for Mitch Marner. I don't think that it will be in Vegas either. They are an elite offense, much like the Maple Leafs are. I expect another 100-point season here for Mitch Marner. He's probably going to play with Jack Eichel on the top line, two players that that should fit seamlessly together with their play style. So I think, like, obviously it's a little nerve-wracking moving away from Austin Matthews, but at least we can find some comfort in the fact that he's landing with another elite pivot. And we talked about Pavel Dorofeyev on the last episode. If that ends up being the other side, he's going to score 100 goals this year, lots of assists for Mitch Marner to rack up. So, I don't think much changes. We'll see how he performs come playoff time. I know that's always been a touchy subject in Toronto, but Beebs, how are you feeling? You're Colorado Avalanche fans. Now you got Mitch Marner moving over to the Western Conference. You're going to see him a little bit more often. How do you feel?
No, I don't love it. I'll say that because he's now on a revenge tour. That's one thing. One thing I wanted to look at here is just the Jack Eichel to Matthews comparison, or just in general, I guess Marner's ice time comparison. So last year, Jack Eichel on the top line in Vegas had 20.32 average ice time. And for Marner to hit his 102 point mark, he had to have 21.19. So it's about a minute difference. So that could easily happen next year. It's totally doable with another superstar along your wing. They can drive play a little bit longer. They can definitely stay out there a little bit more. And that might also be what Jack Eichel needs to hit that 100-point mark, which we've seen. I really like Marner here. I'm a little nervous to get super excited because last year we saw the likes of Marchessault and Stamkos kind of move around and then just absolutely lay duds. And that sucked. But Marner's a lot more steady, a lot younger, and you know what you're getting here. At this point, we talked about it. We like the names ahead of him more. There's a reason. Marner's not going to get you 200 shots. He's only done it twice across his entire career. And Brock dropped those numbers. And across 7 years, he's absolutely crushing the NHL while averaging less than 200 shots. So he's probably likely not going to change that part of his game, especially if Pavel Dorofeyev steps in as the third player on that line. We talked about how many shots he's going to demand as a winger. He's a 300 plus shot guy, and that means Marner's probably just going to keep feeding him his lunch, keep feeding Eichel his lunch, and there's no problem with that. I like Marner here where he's at. If you can get 90 plus points out of him here, I think you're satisfied. I wouldn't expect him to top that 100-point mark, but if he does, Eichel's coming along with him, and you can kind of enjoy the ride. But yeah, I think the value's pretty good here for where he's going in drafts for just the floor here. D, how do you feel about Mitchell Marner in a Vegas jersey?
Yeah, I mean, I was never, like, in terms of fantasy circles, the highest on Marner just because it's always going to be a little bit one-dimensional in terms of the assists. We know there's more fantasy value that derives out of goals. Again, it's a tough one to project, right? We don't know how the utilization is going to shake out, and in terms of the lineup exposure, you'd almost, I would nail down that they're going to give him and Eichel as much run together as they possibly warrant, and I can't imagine that going poorly. But you're talking about, a guy with a pretty shaky injury history. Like, what happens if he falls out of the lineup? And I just don't love taking guys that are this assist dependent that early in the draft. Like, I can maybe count on one hand the amount of times I've owned Marner in fantasy because of that. I just love targeting those guys that can deliver that elite goal production because it seems to be just so much harder to come by in fantasy drafts. So, and then, yeah, it's just a tricky one to project, man. Like, I can't imagine that he tops the 102 points he did a year ago. Maybe he does, but it's just not as top heavy of a team as the Leafs were. I don't think he's going to get quite as much deployment. And I think Eichel, it's a nice fit in terms of you got a shoot first guy and then another, potentially if it's Dorofeyev or whoever, maybe someone else that loves to fire the biscuit, but they're obviously not on that same goal scoring level as an Austin Matthews. So I would think the assist total takes a bit of a hit. And maybe he finishes around, 85 to 95 points. And yeah, I'd be shocked if he topped what he did a year ago. It took him almost a decade in Toronto to finally break that century mark. I don't think it happens the first year in Vegas. I could be wrong. I don't think it's a terrible investment in terms of where he's going towards the end of the second round, but still, that's a point in the draft where I'm really looking to target goal scorers above. So that's, to me, why Marner drops a little bit in these rankings on top of the question marks around, the new scenery.
I think especially the one spot he kind of excels is in points leagues, right? Like, because they at least accumulate a little bit more, where in category leagues he's kind of a one-trick pony where he's going to pick up a ton of assists and they will accumulate a little bit nicer in points leagues than they will in category leagues. So again, we're going to talk about it on every episode all season or all preseason. Know your league and know what you're getting into, because some players are better in different formats, and we'll talk about them as much as we can in each individual format. But unfortunately, fantasy hockey is a lot different than fantasy football and fantasy baseball, where this categories are mostly pretty standard. In fantasy hockey, people can get crazy. D, I know you're in a league that counts literally everything. I think it even counts like every second they play shorthanded. Does it get that deep? Corsi 4, how far are we going here?
Not quite that deep, but it gets close.
Do you had anything quickly to add there, Beebs?
No, I just think to add to D's point about how you kind of want to go after players that score more goals. The next two players we focus on here are kind of driven in that category. So you can definitely find more value later in the draft. And then, as we'll see later in our top 10, that there are a lot of assist heavy players who can provide kind of what Marner's doing on a little lesser scale with just way less ADP involved. So
your boy William Eklund last episode.
Boom. There you go. Yeah. If you get him as your last pick, you basically got Marner light. I don't know. Maybe what's lighter than light?
Seems extreme,
but let's get incredibly extreme. I'm not. We'll cut that.
Marner 0.5.
This is a perfect.
He's the non-alcoholic beer version of Mitch Marner.
The no-name light version.
Let's dive in to number 6. Beebs gave us a little segue there into a much better goal scorer, and that is Sam Reinhart. I got him at 6. Dylan's got him at 5. Beebs has got him down at 9. His ADP is number 5 off the board. So we have him one spot lower than he's going right now. But the ADP overall is number 18 overall. And perhaps this is a player that you would target to pair up with William Nylander on that 1-2 turn. Because it feels like if you're going for some safety here, it seems like we're at the point here with Sam Reinhart. There was no chance heading into last year that he was going to be able to replicate that 57-goal season from 2024. But man, he did a pretty damn good job coming close. He kept his shooting percentage up. After shooting 24.5% in 2024, he fired 18.3% last year and finished with 39 goals in 79 games. He was like my ADP to avoid last year just because the red flags were pretty obvious, but I'm done. I'm not questioning it anymore. He's just going to do this forever and always. And he might even get more playing time in the first half of the season with Matthew Tkachuk on the shelf. We talked about it a little bit with Carter Verhaeghe in the last episode. Verhaeghe's probably going to get a little bit of an increased role. I think we're going to see maybe an extra minute or so for some of the likes of Sam Reinhart as well. I think you can basically at this point just very safely pencil him in for 35 goals and 35 assists with high-end power play production. And obviously the ceiling is much greater. He still feels like a weird player to rank. Like 18th overall seems high, but the floor feels very, very safe here with what he's done in the last 4 seasons. 33 goals, 31 goals, 57 goals, and 39 goals. He's quite capable of producing, and a lot of it comes on the power play, which isn't always the best indicator of future success, but this is a power play that's not really changing. It's, outside of Matthew Tkachuk getting hurt, but he's going to just probably chip in 15 power play goals this year without any hesitation, and then get another 20 at even strength pretty easily. So there's a ceiling here, but there's also a really well-established floor. Beebs, what are you thinking here with Sam Reinhart? Because you're by far the lowest on him here, down at 9.
Yeah, it's just I just thought that, at this point, guys are so close that I do like the ceiling of some of the other players. But say if you do draft a Marner or someone else in your draft, or you have intentions of drafting someone like that, this is your perfect fill-in. As you mentioned, for people who are scared of any type of repetition, now with Tkachuk out of there, that certainly helps his chances. I just would love to see him shoot a little bit more. It was the same reason you were a little bit nervous last year, and the same reason that you had him as your bust. We'd only ever seen him pass 200 shots twice in his career before last year. And then last year, he made it a third time with only 213 shots on goal. I just think that there's a few other names here who get more shots, have a bit more potential, but Sam Reinhart's a pretty safe pick. I love shooting for the stars on this one. But this is, as you mentioned earlier, this is where things get a little murky. So, it's, yeah. But I think if you want goals, go with Samson. He'll make you happy.
You're the highest. You're the highest on him.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to what I talked about with Braden Point. Like, it's hard to trust the high shooting percentage, but when a guy does it so much year over year, I'm just done fighting it, and I'm just going to accept it. Like, this guy just puts the puck in the back of the net. I think like kind of that net front bumper role he plays on the power play just affords him so many high danger opportunities with the man advantage that, you know, he might not score 27 on the power play like he did a couple of years ago, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him to kind of pump up his goal totals that way. And I'm like way less scared betting on a guy, you know, shooting on a high shooting percentage on a guy like Reinhart, who I can also bank on finishing around 40 assists than a guy like Chris Kreider in years past, right? Who's so one dimensional and kind of needs that shooting percentage to really back it up. Like I'm with you. I just think it's such a safe floor, and we saw the ceiling a couple of years ago, right? Like the guy was scraping 60 goals. So to me, if there's anyone who's going to shoot north of 20% in a career, I think he belongs in that category or in a season. But yeah, I just think I'm just done denying it. I'm ready to accept it. And if those shot totals ever climb, which they could this year with extra ice time, and I think on top of everything else that you mentioned, Brock, for the potential reasoning of him kind of vacating some of those minutes with Tkachuk gone, the fact that he's such a strong two-way player, it just makes a lot of sense that he would eat some more of those minutes. And, you know, on top of the fact that he's been as healthy as he has been, he's missed just, 7 games in the last 4 years. So, yeah, very durable player. It makes sense that you lean on him a little bit more, maybe some more shooting opportunities. And, yeah, maybe he is kind of closer to 45 goals to 40 goals next year. So just done denying it.
Let it in. Just allow it. Number 7 for us is Tage Thompson. I've got him right at 7. So does Dylan. Beebs is a little bit higher at number 6. ADP is currently 38.5, which is the 8th right winger off the board. So Tage Thompson, kind of a tale of two seasons. You know, decent start to last season, but really finished just with absolutely an elite pace. He was on pace for 54 goals in his final 38 games of the season. Over the last 4 seasons, he's averaged 43 goals and 79 points. So just a guy that loves to shoot the puck, is going to basically need to drive the offense there. I think that's kind of one concern I have with Tage this year is we're, you know, outside of like Alex Tuck and there's not really a lot of established forwards. Like, yeah, Ryan McLeod had a good year last year. Josh Norris is there, but is he there? Like, he's always not there. Yuri Kulik is a guy that we really like that is young and up and coming, but like, there's not a great surrounding cast here. So it's going to be interesting. We saw a lot of when Tage got hot last year is after he got moved to the wing. Does he stick there? Does he play with Yuri Kulik? Does he play with Josh Norris? Like, he's got a talented enough center that he can definitely continue to score at that 40 and 50 goal pace. Like, he did this with basically the same team last year. So there's really no reason to deny it. It's just, it is a pause for concern a little bit. So like Tage, love the goal scoring upside. I think the upside is a little bit difficult to ignore in the early 4th round. It feels like a great pick. Every time you click on that, a guy that can easily score 50 in the early 4th round, it feels good. D, you've kind of been the Tage truther over the last couple of years. So I'm assuming in the early 4th, you have no hesitations clicking on him yet again.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the concerns that you brought up, right? But I think that's more than baked into that 4th round ADP. So more than happy, ecstatic to pull the trigger at that point. For me personally, I'm probably leaning a little bit earlier on him, kind of towards the middle of the 3rd round, but nice to know with that ADP that he's probably going to be there to call that shot. But yeah, like it's not all that different to me than the concerns that we had with him last year, and he still went out and scored 44 goals. The unfortunate part of that is that the assist total probably not going to climb up too much. Like the 47 he had a couple of years ago is probably not realistic unless we see those guys like Kulik take a big step forward. But I feel really good about where he's at, led the league in even strength goals last year. Power play production is obviously where you're kind of going to, that's the big question mark, right? And can him and Dahlin do enough damage on their own, basically, to him kind of push closer towards 20-25 power play points than the 16 he had a year ago? But again, I think all of those concerns, when you consider the fact that he's one of the best goal scorers in the league, more than baked into that 4th round ADP.
Yeah, Tage, just for me, he bumped ahead of Reinhart strictly because I believe they kind of have a similar goal scoring palette. Maybe Reinhart's a little bit better, but I just like Tage with the more likely chance to hit that 100 point plateau and hit that 300 shot plateau because I tend to really focus on that category. But no, D nailed it. 16 power play points last year. can't get much worse than that. So let's hope it gets better for Tage. I think if you get him in the 4th, you are laughing, and you can, it kind of gives you the freedom to make some choices later down the line in your draft and take some risks in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it into perspective, consensus ranking in DFO's top 300 for Tage is 21. He's going basically 17 picks later on Yahoo. The lowest rank of anybody on Tage is me at 27. So still 11 spots ahead of ADP. Definitely a player that we like. Okay, let's get into number 8. We've got Clayton Keller. I've got him at 8. Beebs has got him at 8. Dylan's got him at 9. So ADP overall is 38.5, the exact same as Tage Thompson. He's the 7th or 8th right winger off the board. So still, again, keeping up with the chalk. Keller has started peaking in the last 3 seasons, right? Always a player that we liked, but never really exploded for massive points until the last 3 seasons, but still falls down draft boards a little bit, right? Over the last 3 years, though, he ranks 16th in the NHL in points with 252, including 3 straight 30-goal seasons. So the production is very, very consistent. And as I mentioned on the Left Wing episode, this is probably the best Utah team that we've ever seen. I mean, obviously, they're only 2 years old, but best Arizona team, best team that Clayton Keller's ever played on. So there's a chance that this is the highest scoring offense that he's ever been a part of, and there's a chance that he builds on his career high of 90 points from a season ago. D, you're slightly lower on him than the other 2, me and Beebs. What are your thoughts here with Clayton Keller?
Yeah, I just think you'd be a little hard pressed to reproduce those 60 assists, and even with the growths around him, I think the on-ice shooting percentage could take a slight dip. I think he's a fantastic player. I'm still happy to take him around his ADP. He carries dual wing eligibility in most formats, but maybe just doesn't flash as much upside as a couple of the guys we got ranked behind him for me. But yeah, I think if he gets back to 90 points with that ADP, I'm ecstatic. I'm just not expecting it. I would kind of project him kind of come closer to a point per game this year.
Yeah, I don't think that's outlandish at all. Coming in at number 9 for us is Jesper Bratt. Current ADP is 40th overall. I've got him at 9th, right where he is. D's a little bit higher at 8. Beebs is coming in at 10. He is the 9th right winger off the board. So again, right in line with ADP. But I mean, Jesper Bratt, he's increased his production, just similar to Clayton Keller, just keeps getting better in each of the last 4 seasons. Although the shot volume did take a bit of a dip in 2025, still it's a player that is typically stapled to the hip of Jack Hughes. Obviously, Jack Hughes missed quite a bit of time last year, and he's shown that he can be north of a point per game player and threaten 30 goals. I think obviously there is a little bit of goal scoring or lack of goal scoring upside here with Jesper Bratt, but I think a player that could put up 30 goals and potentially 60 assists in a season if all goes right. So I like Jesper Bratt quite a bit here. I'm comfortable taking him around that 40 ADP. I would be happier, I think, to lay into Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller, who I have ranked slightly ahead of them. But Beebs, you're the lowest here on Jesper Bratt. Any red flags sticking out, or just like the other guys a little bit better?
It's just the other guys' potential, the other guys' shots on goal. We saw Jesper Bratt not reach 200 last year, but one thing I realized right now looking at Bratt is that instead of Eklund being compared to a Walmart Mitch Marner, I think Jesper Bratt can probably be that, but I'd give him a little bit higher than Walmart. We could go like let's go like a Zares. I don't know if you guys have those across all our listeners, but either way, he is almost as good as Mitch Marner. And the ADP is significantly later, which I'm totally cool with. Why Bratt kind of got pushed out of my top 10 here. He is 10, but why he got close to the end was just it seems his plateau is 90 points. And it seems that, 30 goals is going to be a tough task, especially with some of the guys around him who just love to shoot the puck a little bit more than him. So for me, I think he makes a safe play if you need some assists, and I would rather have Bratt at this point than Marner earlier in the draft. So yeah, Bratt, it's pretty crazy that he's even continuing to be in our top 10, because I remember years ago when we were mentioning this guy as a free agent pickup and no one was grabbing him. So good for Jesper, but he can stay there at the end of our top 10.
DA, before I go to you, I'll leave your comments on Jesper Bratt for the second half of the show. I know you got a little bit more on him later, and we'll get to our number 10 right winger, who is Martin Necas. Current ADP is 50.5, which makes him the 10th right winger off the board. That's exactly where Dylan and I have him ranked. Beebs is the highest on of the three of us at 7. Necas, obviously a player that was just absolutely a stud in Carolina last year before getting traded to Colorado in that Mikko Rantanen trade. He was fine in Colorado, right? Had some really big games, went quiet for a little bit. Wasn't necessarily fantastic in the playoffs. He was fine, but I think there's opportunity for him to absolutely explode this year. The ice time skyrocketed from Carolina to Colorado, where he averaged 20 minutes and 30 seconds per game. The majority of that coming on in line with Nathan MacKinnon. So if that's going to be his role, if he's going to be the Mikko Rantanen now that just plays with Nathan MacKinnon every single night, like in a contract year as well. I love the upside of Martin Necas. I love what he could possibly bring to the table here in his first full season with the Avs.
Well, I guess it's just more I'm a little bit higher on that ceiling than you two here, because we all kind of agree there is the potential for Necas. It's just will he hit that level? We talked about in our previous episode for Kaprizov, a contract year can be a dangerous beast. So I'm banking on that for Necas. One thing too is once he did come to Colorado, Brock mentioned it, a 225 uptick in ice time. We didn't necessarily see that translate to the point categories, but that's completely okay. It did lead to plus 0.4 shots per game, which is all you need in fantasy. Well, not all you need, but what you need in fantasy to keep improving your numbers. I think with one offseason with Nathan MacKinnon, we've heard about how ridiculously extreme he is. I think working alongside with him with their speed, they could kind of lock in how to roll together a little bit better. I'm banking on Necas, taking that next step forward, getting over 90 points this season with just a complete year with Colorado. We saw Rantanen go 104 and 105 in Colorado with similar ice time. Obviously, Rantanen has better goal scoring potential, but we're talking about Martin Necas here as our 10th right winger off the board. So I really like him here. I think we've seen people go nuts for players who play alongside MacKinnon before, as they should, and Necas looks like he's attached to him going forward. So I don't mind grabbing him here, and I think it's a safe bet. And I also think the floor is pretty safe too. If he is up there, he's still going to get 20 plus minutes of ice. Still going to play quite well. But as always, we need Martin to just keep those shots going.
Yeah, I agree. I think the assist totals feel pretty safe, right? And it's just a matter of if you can get that shot volume back up to where it was a few seasons ago, where he was at 240, 231, saw a bit of a dip last year. But if that happens, with the elite talent surrounding him, I really like with where he's going in drafts. I think he makes a lot of sense at his ADP.
With that, that'll conclude our top 10. Let's just do a quick recap. We got Nikita Kucherov at number 1, David Pastrnak at number 2, Mikko Rantanen at number 3, William Nylander 4, Mitch Marner 5, Sam Reinhart 6, Tage Thompson 7, Clayton Keller 8, Jesper Bratt 9, Martin Necas number 10. Just a quick look at who just missed out on our top 10. Number 11 came in at Cole Caulfield. Two of us, me and Beebs, had him at 12. D had him right there at 11. ADP is currently 56. He's the 12th right winger off the board. Next was Adrian Kempe, one of those players that is someone you really need to watch his ADP. Definitely has offensive upside, but is more of a Brady Tkachuk, Philip Forsberg type player where he is format dependent because he will provide 100 plus hits and 250 plus shots. So leagues with those categories, he definitely is a category stuffer, but in more standard formats, he maybe has a little bit less value, but I don't want to knock him too much because he is been very, very reliable over the last few seasons. He's averaged 35 goals and 38 assists. So definitely still has his value in standard formats, but definitely a guy that's ADP probably climbs a touch higher than it should be just due to the banger leagues and the Yahoo standard scoring. So Kempe comes in at number 12. I've got him at 11. D's at 12. Beebs, the notorious Adrian Kempe hater, even though he didn't pick him as a fade this year, he still has him ranked the lowest of us, so he can't escape that. Matvei Michkov comes in at number 13. I've got him right at 13. Beebs has him at 11. D's got him at 14. He is currently the number 15 right winger off the board. Number 14 is Lucas Raymond. Number 15 is Dylan Gunther. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in the second half of the show. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.